I will never look at mirrors the same after this happened. I've always been a bit of a skeptic, firmly rooted in the tangible, the explainable. But something happened last night that has left me deeply unsettled and questioning the very fabric of reality. This isn't just a creepy story, this is my experience, and it's left me with a sense of dread I can't shake. It was a typical evening. I was going through my usual nighttime routine, brushing my teeth in my bathroom. The room was dimly lit, just enough so I could see what I was doing without being blinded by the harsh overhead light. As I glanced up at the mirror, something caught my eye. The surface of the glass was covered in fingerprints, smudged and smeared across the reflective surface. My first thought was annoyance. How had the mirror gotten so dirty? I lived alone, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd even touched the mirror, let alone left such obvious marks. Muttering under my breath, I finished brushing my teeth and grabbed a towel to wipe the glass clean. I rubbed at the smudges, expecting them to disappear with a bit of elbow grease. But they didn't. No matter how hard I scrubbed, the fingerprints remained stubbornly in place. I switched tactics, grabbing a cleaning spray from under the sink and dousing the mirror. Still, the marks wouldn't budge. It was as if they were etched into the glass. Frustration turned to confusion as I leaned closer to inspect the fingerprints. That's when I noticed something that made my skin crawl. They weren't on the surface of the mirror. The smudges seemed to be on the other side of the glass, inside the mirror itself. I took a step back, heart pounding. That didn't make any sense. Mirrors reflect. They don't have a backside that you can reach without breaking them. The fingerprints were clear, distinct, as if someone had pressed their hands against the other side of the glass and left their mark. I stood there for a long time, staring at the mirror, my mind racing with possibilities. Had I somehow hallucinated the whole thing? Was I losing my grip on reality? I reached out tentatively, touching the cool surface of the glass. It felt solid, normal, yet the prints remained, taunting me with their impossibility. I decided to test something. I drew a small X on the mirror with a dry erase marker directly over one of the fingerprints. I then checked the back of the mirror, which was securely fastened to the wall. As expected, there was no access to the other side of the glass. Returning to the front, I saw that the X I had drawn was perfectly aligned with the fingerprint beneath it, yet the print itself was unchanged, still embedded within the glass. It was as if the mirror was a window to another place, another reality where someone or something had touched it from the other side. My sleep that night was fitful, filled with unsettling dreams of mirrors and unseen presences. When I woke up, I half hoped that the fingerprints would be gone, that it had all been a bizarre dream. But there they were, as clear as ever, mocking my attempts to rationalize their existence. I did some research, trying to find any logical explanation. Could it be a defect in the mirror, a trick of the light? But nothing I found could account for what I was seeing. I even considered the supernatural ghosts, parallel dimensions, glitches in reality. None of these explanations brought any comfort. As a last resort, I called a friend over to see if they could see the fingerprints too. I needed to know that I wasn't imagining things. My friend arrived, and I pointed out the marks on the mirror. The look on their face told me everything. I wasn't crazy. They saw the fingerprints too, and they were just as baffled and disturbed as I was. I've since replaced the mirror, unable to stand the sight of those eerie prints any longer. But the experience has left me deeply unsettled. Every time I look into a mirror now, I can't help but wonder about the other side. Is there something or someone looking back at me? And if so, what do they want? This experience has shaken me to my core, leaving me questioning the nature of reality and the boundaries between our world and whatever lies beyond. If anyone has any similar experiences or explanations, please share. I need to make sense of this chilling encounter before it drives me mad. Update 1. First off, I want to thank everyone who reached out after my initial post. The support and shared experiences from this community have been a tremendous help during this unsettling time. I wish I could say that things have returned to normal, but unfortunately, that's far from the truth. After replacing the mirror, I hoped the bizarre incident would be behind me. For a while, things seemed to be fine. The new mirror showed no signs of those eerie fingerprints, and I started to convince myself that maybe it had all been a strange, isolated event. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. A couple of weeks after installing the new mirror, I noticed something peculiar. While brushing my teeth one night, I felt an odd chill in the bathroom. It was summer and the rest of the apartment was warm, but the bathroom felt like a walk-in freezer. I shrugged it off as a draft or perhaps my imagination, but the feeling of being watched was unmistakable. The next night, I was in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I heard a faint tapping sound coming from the bathroom. It was rhythmic, like someone lightly tapping their fingernails against glass. I froze, listening intently. The tapping continued for a few minutes, then stopped abruptly. I gathered the courage to investigate, but found nothing unusual. The mirror was clear, no fingerprints, no sign of anything out of the ordinary. The following nights, the tapping persisted, sometimes louder, sometimes softer, but always coming from the direction of the mirror. I tried recording the sound, but whenever I hit record, the tapping would cease, only to start up again once I stopped. It was driving me mad. Desperate for answers, I reached out to a local paranormal investigator. I was skeptical but willing to try anything at this point. The investigator, a woman named Evelyn, came over with her equipment, EMF detectors, thermal cameras, the works. She spent hours in my apartment, focusing on the bathroom and the mirror. As Evelyn asked questions, a faint, garbled voice came through the static. Most of it was unintelligible, but one phrase stood out clearly. "Help me." My blood ran cold. Evelyn tried to get more information, but the voice never spoke again. She suggested that whatever was on the other side of the mirror might be trying to reach out for help, trapped somehow. After Evelyn left, I was left with more questions than answers. I couldn't sleep, my mind racing with possibilities. That night, the tapping was louder than ever, almost frantic. I decided to face it head-on. Armed with a flashlight, I stood in front of the mirror and spoke aloud, asking who was there and what they wanted. For a moment, there was silence, then a single, clear tap on the glass. I felt a sudden urge to touch the mirror. As I placed my hand on the surface, it felt ice cold, and I could see my breath fogging up the glass. To my horror, I saw a faint outline of a handprint form on the other side, matching mine perfectly. I pulled my hand away, heart pounding, and the print slowly faded. The next day, I contacted a mirror specialist, someone who could tell me more about the construction and possible defects of mirrors. When the specialist arrived, they examined both the new and old mirrors. They confirmed there were no manufacturing defects that could explain what I was experiencing. The mirrors were ordinary, at least by physical standards. With nowhere else to turn, I delved deeper into research about mirrors and their historical significance. Mirrors have often been seen as portals or gateways in various cultures, capable of trapping souls or acting as windows to other realms. I found countless stories of people experiencing strange phenomena involving mirrors, but none exactly like mine. As a last resort, I decided to move. The final straw was waking up one night to find the new mirror covered in fresh fingerprints, despite having cleaned it meticulously the night before. The thought of whatever was on the other side possibly crossing over terrified me. I packed my belongings and left the apartment, hoping that distance would bring me peace. Now, in my new place, there are no mirrors. I've opted for artwork and photographs instead. The tapping has stopped, and the chilling feeling of being watched has finally lifted. But I can't shake the nagging thought whatever was in that mirror is still out there, and it might not be done with me yet. Thank you again to everyone who offered support and advice. This experience has changed my perception of reality, and I'm not sure I'll ever truly feel at ease again. If anything similar happens in the future, I'll be sure to update this thread. Stay safe, everyone. It's been a few months since my last update, and I hoped that by moving and removing mirrors from my life, the strange occurrences would stop. For a while, it seemed to work. I found a new apartment, far away from the old one, and settled into a mirror-free existence. But despite my best efforts, the peace I sought has proven elusive. The first few weeks in the new apartment were blissfully uneventful. No tapping, no cold drafts, and certainly no inexplicable fingerprints. I started to believe that I had left the nightmare behind. But then, small, unsettling signs began to creep back into my life. It started with my phone. One night, as I was scrolling through photos, I found an image that I didn't remember taking. It was a picture of my new bathroom. In the reflection of the bathroom window, I could see a faint outline of a face, just barely visible. The features were indistinct, but the eyes were unmistakably staring directly at me. I deleted the photo, convincing myself it was just a trick of the light. A few days later, I noticed that my windows would often fog up despite it being the middle of summer. On one particularly humid evening, I saw what looked like smudged handprints on the inside of the glass. They were eerily similar to the fingerprints I had seen on the mirror in my old apartment. Panic set in, but I tried to stay rational. I cleaned the windows thoroughly, hoping it would be the end of it. Then the tapping started again. This time, it was coming from the living room window. Rhythmic, persistent, and unmistakably similar to the sounds I had heard before. I felt a sinking dread. I tried to ignore it, but it became harder each night. The feeling of being watched returned with a vengeance, and I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder. One evening, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. As I walked past a shop window, I caught a glimpse of my reflection. Behind me, standing just over my shoulder, was a shadowy figure. I spun around, but the street was empty. I hurried home, heart pounding, and decided to call Evelyn, the paranormal investigator. Evelyn agreed to come over the next day. She arrived with her equipment and a sense of urgency. After setting up in my apartment, she conducted another session with the spirit box. This time, the response was immediate and chilling. Help ... trapped ... mirror, the voice crackled through the static. My blood ran cold. Evelyn looked at me, her face pale. I think whatever is haunting you isn't confined to mirrors alone. It's following you through reflections. Evelyn suggested a cleansing ritual to banish the entity. I was willing to try anything. We went through the process, burning sage and reciting incantations. For a moment, the air felt lighter, and I dared to hope that it might work. But that night, the tapping was louder than ever, and this time it was accompanied by whispers. I could barely make out the words, but it was clear someone, or something, was trying to communicate. I could hear fragments of phrases, pleading for help, describing a cold, dark place. It was as if the entity was trapped in a dimension it couldn't escape. Desperation set in. I reached out to a historian who specialized in folklore and ancient myths. Dr. Harper listened to my story with a grave expression. She explained that mirrors have long been considered portals to other realms. Breaking one could trap a spirit or even a person between worlds. Sometimes, she said, those who are trapped can only reach out through reflections. They might be trying to use you to break free. With Dr. Harper's guidance, we devised a plan. I needed to confront the entity directly, using a mirror as a medium. Reluctantly, I bought a small handheld mirror and set it up in the center of my living room. Evelyn and Dr. Harper were with me as I called out to the spirit. For a long time, nothing happened. Then, the mirror's surface began to ripple like water. A face appeared, faint and sorrowful. It was the same face I had seen in the window's reflection. The whispers grew louder, clearer. Help me ... release me ... Dr. Harper instructed me to place my hand on the mirror and speak firmly, telling the spirit that it was free to leave. My hand shook as I pressed it against the cold glass and spoke the words. The face contorted in anguish, and the room grew unbearably cold. But then, gradually, the image faded and the temperature returned to normal. The mirror's surface was smooth and clear once more. Evelyn and Dr. Harper both assured me that the ritual was a success, that the spirit had been released. Since that night, the tapping has ceased and the feeling of being watched has dissipated. My windows and remaining reflective surfaces show no more signs of handprints or strange phenomena. I still avoid mirrors as much as possible, the memory of those chilling events forever etched in my mind. This experience has left me with a profound sense of unease about the unseen world that might exist parallel to our own. I'm more cautious, more wary of the reflections I see every day. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this ordeal. I hope this is truly the end of my encounter with the unknown. For now, I'll be steering clear of mirrors and reflections, grateful for the peace I've finally found, but always mindful of what might be lurking on the other side.